Good morning, students. So today we are going to start with new chapter in science, which is lesson number 5, separation of substances. So before starting, let us know what is the mixture. Mixture are impure substances in which two or more constituents are combined in any proportion. Since the constituents are not chemically combined, so we can separate the mixture. That is, we can separate the constituents of a mixture using different physical methods. And in this lesson, we are going to learn about those different physical methods. So now the question arises, why do we need to separate substances? Because we need to separate harmful or non-useful substances that may be mixed with it. Sometimes we even separate useful components if we need to use them separately. So the substances to be separated may be particles of different sizes or materials. These may be solids, liquids, or even gases, like separating stones from rice, churning milk to obtain butter, or to separate tea leaves. So now question arises, how do we separate these substances mixed together? For this, we are going to study some separation techniques. And your first separation techniques is hand picking. Hand picking is the simplest method of separation of substances. It is used to separate slightly larger sized impurities like the piece of dirt, stone and husk from wheat, rice or your pulses. The quantity of such impurities is usually not very large, and that is why it is a very convenient and easy method. Moreover, shape, size, or color of the unwanted material is different from that of the useful material. So it becomes quite easy to separate the unwanted material. Next separation technique is threshing. Threshing Threshing is a technique which is used for separating seeds from the harvested stalks. And there are three ways by which we can use this method to separate grains or substances. First we have is manual threshing. Manual threshing, when the quantity is small, threshing is done with hand. Small bundles of the harvested stalks are thrashed on a large surface, and this helps in separating the grains. See this picture? This is example of manual threshing. They are doing it by hand. They have made small bundles of the harvested stalks and they are being thrashed on a hard surface. So the grains are being separated. Next we have is threshing by animals. For larger quantity, threshing is done the traditional way, means by using animals. For this, stalks are spread around a pole. Several bullocks are tied to the pole and are made to walk over the harvested stalks. Trampling by hooves of these animals helps in separating grains. Last but not the least, we have threshing by machines. Nowadays, threshing machines are used for the purpose. It can be either powered by a diesel engine or an electric motor. So the next separation technique is winnowing. Winnowing is the method of separating components of a mixture. It is used to separate heavier and lighter components of a mixture by wind or by blowing air. This method is commonly used by farmers to separate lighter husk particles from heavier seeds of grain. The lighter husk particles are carried away by the wind and grains form a heap near the platform for winnowing. See these pictures here? These are examples of winnowing. So the next process is sieving. Sieve or sifter is a device used for separating unwanted elements from wanted materials. That is our impurities. We separate impurities from our material. So this process is known as sieving, and it allows the fine particles to pass through the holes of the sieve while the bigger impurities remain on the sieve. See this example here, picture. This is an example of sieve. It is allowing the fine particles, the minute particles to pass through the hole of the sieve while the bigger one, which cannot pass through the holes remains. So another method is evaporation. Evaporation is actually a type of vaporization of liquid that occurs from the surface of a liquid into a gaseous phase. In easier terms, it is the process of conversion of liquid into vapor form. So other type of vaporization is boiling, which is characterized by bubbles of saturated vapor forming in the liquid phase. Steam produced in boiler is another example of evaporation. Now, evaporation that occurs directly from the solid phase below the melting point, as commonly observed with ice at or below freezing or moth crystals, is called sublimation. Now, have a look at the slide here. Water cycle is shown here. You can see water in different forms. For example, it is in liquid form in the lake, but in the sky, it is in the cloud form. So, what is condensation? Condensation is the change of the physical state of matter from gas phase into liquid phase. You can call it reverse of evaporation. The word most often refers to the water cycle. It can also be defined as the change in the state of water vapor to liquid water when in contact with a liquid or solid surface or cloud condensation nuclei within the atmosphere. Next we have is sedimentation. Sedimentation is when the heavier component in a mixture settles after water is added to it. Then the process is known as sedimentation. And when the water along with dust is removed, the process is called decantation. For example, when you add water to rice or pulses, the impurities like dust and sand particles get separated. The heavier particles, that is your ice or pulses, they get settled at the bottom, while the mud or dust mixture with the water, they come at the top and the vessel is tilted to remove the dirt. So next we have is filtration. Filtration basically it's a method which is used to separate liquid from solid by adding a medium through which only the fluid can pass. The fluid that passes through is called filtrate. For example, when you prepare the tea, before drinking you pass it through a strainer where the leaves remains and the tree, which is actually the fine product, is strained into a cup. So this is your filtration.